Hi, good morning. Today is Thursday, February 27th, 2025. I'm Anthony. This is Drive Dive. So I appreciate being here with me, right? I'm a dad, a husband, a teacher, play TCG games, etc. But lately I've been hooked on productivity and ways to be more productive. And right, this long drive I have in the morning is major time suck and making me feel very, very anxious and angry and bitter and lots of negativity. So started creating these YouTube videos to try to feel more productive, and whether it was listening to audiobooks too was something I was trying to do on my drive. And so putting all that stuff together is this YouTube channel here. So the topic today, right, I'm continuing to reflect on James Clear's book Atomic Habits, and in one of the later chapters he talks about this idea of I'm paraphrasing, calling it like embracing the boring, right? A lot of times we talk about embracing the grind. Well, the grind is boring. And in order to, go from good to great, you have to be able to do a lot of the boring. And he has some salient points in his book where he talks about, just personal preferences, personal traits and whatnot. We are more inclined to do some boring tasks, more so than others. Right? I think I disclosed personally yesterday that things like eating the same thing every day, things like training in the gym, right? Those are things that I enjoy doing. But a lot of the boring I consider like networking and small talk and, how was your day? And, oh, did you ever notice? And have you watched this show? Like a lot of those things I just find very boring because they're not productive, because they're not in support of my goals, right? Which again, I'm more inclined to value certain goals than others, whereas, you might think my goals are garbage and whatever, right? So there's a lot that I think that needs to be reflected upon there. But so in my role as an educator, though, is what I want to try to get into. I'll touch upon a little bit my role as an educator, a little bit more how this idea of embracing the boring impacts my personal life. And then at the very end, I'll get into some sort of educational leadership type stuff, reflecting on my career and the state of education, for a minute there. But anyway, where am I, right? So talking with my kids yesterday about this idea, talking about my kids yesterday in the classroom about embracing the boring, I'm realizing I've been talking with them as a high school math teacher about the importance of showing their work, about things like completing homework, about studying, and you realize that I think we have this goal. I say all this stuff and I go, well, assuming you have the goal of doing well, in school, the goal of doing well in this math class, you might be more inclined to do, X, Y, or Z. Whether you want to get an A, get a B, whatever the goal is, for yourself in this class, unfortunately, there's a lot of boring stuff that you need to do in order to attain that goal. And yeah, it's not as exciting as when we do use the calculator, right? It's not as exciting as picking up the calculator, punching some buttons in, getting an answer and finding out that you got the correct answer, right? That's sort of the exciting part. The boring part is showing all of your work, going through all of the steps, and maybe it's drawing a picture and labeling the picture and figuring out which mathematical relationship, aka rule, aka equation, formula I need to use in this instance, right? That's not very exciting. Showing all of your work, explaining your thinking isn't exciting. But if you really want to be good, great even, at mathematics and get an A in this class, unfortunately those are some of the boring things you just need to do. In yesterday's video, I said there's this word out there for all the boring stuff that we have to do as caregivers or whatnot, and it's called adulting, right? And thinking about, my goodness, right? No one loves washing the dishes, I don't think. I don't think anybody loves doing the laundry or cutting the grass, or right? There's so many of these tasks and chores that are boring, but you have to do these things. I know I've been struggling, my wife and I have been struggling for a couple of years now, really since our daughter's been born, our second child, where we're both kind of spread thin and, almost living like parallel lives and just parenting, right? It's like we're taking care of the kids and we're hardly taking care of, ourselves, right? Me taking care of myself, her taking care of herself, let alone us taking care of each other in our relationship, because of the kids, because of all of the chores, the adulting that goes on, and maybe not always taking the time to even just talk about the week and what's happening and who's doing what when, right? That's like a very boring task. But right, well, you didn't put this in our shared calendar. Well, you didn't put that in the shared calendar, right? But like, you have to do those things, I believe, and I'm starting to realize, because as you do those things, you then start to see, oh, hey, you know what? There is this opportunity there that we've been missing. It's been staring at us the whole time, where we could spend some time together, where we could work on our relationship. I know in earlier videos I talked about just in terms of routines, right? Earlier sections of James Clear's book where he talks about your systems and your routines and trying to establish those, right? Like making sure that, my wife and I are saying good morning to each other, and maybe more than just saying good morning, but habit stacking. And after I say good morning, I'm going to give her a hug. I'm going to give her a kiss, right? We're going to share just those little moments, right? Sometimes when, I might already be home, on the couch or something with my daughter watching Blue's Clues. My wife comes in. Well, okay, like, hey, babe, what's going on? Well, in addition to, right, when I say, hey, babe, what's going on? I'm going to turn to my daughter and say, hey, daddy will be right back. He's got to go say hi to mommy, right? Get up and again, have that routine where I'm going for the hug, going for the kiss, right? So doing things like that. But in addition, as I said, while we're going over calendars and things like that, we're starting to realize like, hey, like why don't we stay up late on Saturdays? Why don't we make it a point, for the two of us to, after the kids go to bed, just stay up for the extra hour or two, and spend that time alone together. Whether that's right, watching a movie, more talking, or we've been talking about some, right, just general conversation stuff, but we've been talking about like maybe a couple of different projects that we could be, working together on, some other content creation and such, and recognizing that there are those opportunities, like I said, Saturday nights, right? Why haven't we talked about it? We said, well, we could do Friday nights, we could do Saturday nights. We've settled on Saturday as plan A and maybe Friday as plan B, depending on what that weekend looks like. But we don't know what that weekend looks like unless we do that boring chore of, syncing our calendars, right? So, look for those opportunities, I think, to do the boring. And I really do think that you almost need to, whatever endeavor you're about to embark on, or whatever your current goals and projects are, take a moment and think about, when you sometimes you make like a pros and cons list or something, let's try to maybe make a list of the exciting tasks and the boring tasks, and really take a hard look at those boring tasks. One, I think you have to ask yourself, am I going to be able to do these things? Am I going to have that will, the desire? But also to position those boring tasks as those hidden opportunities, right? What are the benefits or potential benefits of engaging in those boring tasks? Like I said, managing a calendar is not the sexiest thing to do. It just isn't, right? And then sharing it with a partner or members of your team, right? It might not feel like, an important thing to do. Having a shared calendar might not feel like an important thing to do, but, talk, right? Have that conversation with yourself, but also, the thought partners in your life, whether that's a spouse at home or, partners and team leaders and, bosses, directors, whomever at work, your secretaries and assistants, etc. About some of the boring tasks involved in a particular project or general workplace routines, and talk about some of the potential benefits. What makes them difficult, but then these boring tasks. What makes them so difficult? But then what are some of the hidden benefits or potential benefits that might be realized by engaging in them? And now, I guess I'd like to get into, like I said, reflecting on this idea of boring and education. And if you're not familiar, there is often talked about, I think more so nowadays than prior years, is the teacher shortage. There's just, I don't know, there just aren't a lot of people entering the field, and even my students have caught on to it, where they asked me if I teach Algebra 2, right? They're my current geometry students. They'll be taking Algebra 2 next year. They're like, do you teach Algebra 2? I guess they're interested in spending more time with me. But I said, well, right now, no, but I honestly don't know what happens next year, because we do have a couple of teachers in the department who will be retiring at the end of this year. And one of my students said, oh, math teachers, they're the hardest to find. So even she knows, and there's some history in my district, Spotswood, where there's been one position that they've just had kind of a revolving door, and I've had students who've said, oh yeah, like my sophomore year I had two different teachers, my junior year I had two different teachers, right? They just, and it impacts them, right? I mean, that continuity is so important. Even if you're not in education, I think you might, hear about it in sports, right? Like if the coaching carousel and, inconsistent GMs and all this other stuff, and how they can negatively impact a franchise. Well, imagine that for a kid who's trying to, learn mathematics, right? Which isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. So, they've picked up on that, but I think it's not just math. I mean, it's world language. It's computer science, it's ed tech, right? Like if your school's got a woodshop program, that those teachers go, like good luck finding any candidates at all, let alone a quality one, that can really drive programs and keep kids engaged, right? So it's very challenging in education to find qualified individuals who are also then energetic and passionate and etc., connect well with kids, all that stuff. But like, why is that? And I right, there are a lot of people, I don't know, I hate to say it, but it's like, I'll say hello to some of the adults in the building, how's it going? And they're like, oh, well, I'm here, so, and just not a lot of optimism, I'm like, well, come on, it can't be that bad. And a guy honestly says, like, yeah, some days aren't as bad as others, right? Or this it's just like, what? You mean some days are better than others? Like, I'd never heard anyone say, like, no, this one's not as bad as the others. Like, what? So not as bad, but still bad, right? I don't know. So, but I think there's a lot of boring in education, and I can't compare it to any other field. I really can't. But you get into education because you want to have this impact, right? You want to make a difference in kids' lives. You want to be that passionate educator, and like, I'm going to teach them the right way, and I'm going to reach more kids and help them understand things the way that I understand them, whether that's subject matter or the world, right? Like, I have so much knowledge to give and passion to bring, and ideas and all this other stuff, or maybe you want to get involved in coaching or club advising, right? Some people do it because they love drama, and right, they want to teach theater and all of that, right? It's like, okay, great, like, but then I think once you get into it, there are a lot of daily chores, and they can be very boring, right? Thinking about things like lesson planning and grading papers and some of the phone calls and other communication, right? Email, and you do a lot of photocopying, and there's a lot of that, right? You're just updating grades and you're reporting grades, right? There's just so much, I think, that goes into it. Professional development, that can be very boring and a major turnoff, I think, for a lot of people. I do my schedule is, I have 5 classes. Each one is, about 40 minutes. And I mean, each one of those 40-minute periods they're not always the most exciting. They're not always the most, appealing, right? For me, I'm teaching the content. I know, right? I'm interacting with kids and, exchanging some jokes and things like that. But every now and then, you're getting those classes where, you're just kind of like, guys, like, where are we? Like, what are we doing, right? Or you do end up with a child that requires so much of your attention for not so great reasons, whether their behavior or their work ethic, right? Like, just isn't quite there, and you're spending a lot of time, I guess, managing behaviors and trying to motivate kids, and it doesn't always feel so rewarding. It's not very exciting, right? It can feel very boring. And so I think as leaders in education, we kind of have to recognize those things and see them one as challenges, I think, right? Recognizing those as perhaps the reasons why some teachers are maybe looking elsewhere, whether different fields or entirely or different districts, and trying to see what we can do to lighten the load, overall, but also to, I think, those boring tasks maybe make them a little less cumbersome, or help folks realize the importance of them. And like I said before, the benefits of engaging in some of those boring tasks. So I don't know. You're right. It's difficult, but I imagine, in other walks of life, and I would love for people, if you're watching this long, 17 minutes in, I very much appreciate it. Comment down below. Like I said, I don't know anything about other professions, what makes them appealing or not so much. What are some of the exciting activities you engage in, and then what are some of the boring ones? What do you find enjoyable about some of these boring tasks, right? Other people might say they're boring, but you might enjoy them. I don't know, data entry, face level, sounds really boring. But I know that I somehow enjoy those things. My line of work, curriculum writing, there's a lot of editing and wordsmithing and table formatting and things like that within a Word document. It drives some people nuts, working at page breaks and things like that. I kind of enjoy those tasks. So I wondered if you could comment down below some things like that, help people out there, understand some things about your profession. That's this whole like work from home phenomenon too, where it's not really a phenomenon nowadays, but when people are sharing photos of themselves, working on their laptop on a beach somewhere, it's like, yeah, okay, those boring tasks, but change of scenery, like, wow, that's pretty exciting, and I could totally go for something like that. But that's not every profession, right? So, enlighten us. But I guess that's it for me. Like I said, embracing the boring. I mean, there are aspects of it in your hobbies and your passions, side hustles. There are certainly aspects of that within our professional lives, within our home lives. And I'd like you, if you could comment down below and, share some thoughts on those different things, I'd appreciate it. I don't know, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. We'll catch you on the next one. Guess I've run a little long the past couple days, but yeah, that's it. Tomorrow's Friday. I'll share, a couple of reflections, I think, on the week, some final reflections, and we'll see what next week brings. But yeah, have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Take care.